I think a lot of people, when they start out, it's coming from a negative place or place of not liking yourself and wanting to change how you look and punishing yourself. A lot of women in particular struggle with is they live their life in this constant cycle of dieting. I think what a lot of people struggle with is they put themselves on these extreme deficits and they cut out carbs or they follow a diet with food rules, and that can't be sustained. Hi guys, and welcome back to Connected and Uncensored. I am your host, Michaela, and today we are joined by not only one of my closest friends, but also personal trainer and nutrition coach, Ruby. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Me too.
Just nervous.
Yeah,
blocking
that
this
luscious
already.
hair needs to
Chuck it
block
back
your
here.
gorgeous voice. And I wanted to bring her on today for a few reasons. I guess the main one being Rubes is the reason why I got my pre-mama body back, but also have the healthy relationship that I do with my food that I currently have. And I think she's a wealth of knowledge. Every time I ask her something, I'm kind of blown away by how much she knows and how goddamn spot on it always is, even when I'm like, no, that won't work. It works, guys. It works. So I wanted her to be able to have a bit of a chat to you guys on how you can maybe start a health and fitness journey and do it in a healthier way as possible, not only for your body, but for your mental health. So why don't we start by you giving everybody a bit of an idea of who you are and what you do.
What a nice intro. Thank you. So I am Ruby. I am from Sydney. I live on the Northern Beaches, and I have been a personal trainer and fitness coach for 8 years now. So my husband owns a gym as well in the Northern Beaches. So I've actually just gone back to doing some face-to-face PT after a little bit of time off, because I am also a boy mum to two little boys. So I have a 9-month-old and an almost 3-year-old, and I'm lucky enough to have 2 stepsons as well. So it is definitely busy with all the boys in the house, but I'm very excited to be getting back into the industry because it is what I'm very, very passionate about. So at the moment, I'm just getting back into some face-to-face personal training sessions, so one-on-one, but I have also done a lot of online work in the past with women, and I have also been in the group training space. So a little bit of everything, but I'm very passionate about working one-on-one. I work with men as well, but particularly with women. And like you said, working on multiple things. So not just the training, because nutrition is just as important, more important in my perspective, as well as mindset. So yeah, I absolutely love it and very excited to be here today and getting into it.
And are you comfortable with saying the gym that you guys have?
Yeah, that's fine.
So Vision Gym in Mona Vale. Yeah. If anybody does want to go and check her out, highly recommend. But what about in terms of your own journey with health and fitness? I mean, you started from a really young age, even doing like on stage competitions and things like that. Would you be able to give the listeners a bit of an idea on what your journey looks like?
So it's far from perfect. I will start by saying that. But from a very young age, as long as I can remember, I have always been drawn to the health and fitness industry. As like a little girl, I would remember going through my mum's women's health magazines, and then I'd start saving up and buying, all the different ones that were there. So I've always been really, really passionate about it. But, back then I used to look at what all the celebrities and models were doing and copy what they were doing. And I did definitely fall into something a lot of women struggle with, which is that, restrict, then binge, all or nothing mindset, copying what everyone's doing and not doing it for the right reasons. But yeah, like I said, I was always looking at it, learning about it. At school, it's what I thrived in, the theory, PhD. I don't know what it's even called now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, it's always what I was going to do. I started at the gym, like training at the gym probably at like 13, 14. Oh, wow. I did all the classes. I did a bit of this, bit of that, would do the Les Mills. And then when I was 18, I said, okay, I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. So I did a 20-week prep and basically just restricted myself the whole entire time. I did it for the wrong reasons. I did it to prove I could, and because I thought, it would make me seem more credible. And at the end of the day, looking back, I definitely probably shouldn't have done it, but I learned a lot from it. And I do think that that is a sport and it needs to be respected, and people train a long time. You can't just get on stage and do a quick little shred. You have to, do the work, build the body, and then, give it the time that it deserves.
Yeah.
So now it looks a lot different that I am a mum, because they are my reason why. I train to be the best mum that I can for them, to set a good example. I am moving now I have definitely a much more balanced approach to training. So I do a lot of weight training, and I have signed up for my first half marathon. And again, they're my reason why, just to, show them that you can do what you put your mind to, and to, set a good example for them, show them how to nourish their bodies and move in a way that they enjoy. So I've definitely done a little bit of everything. We used to kickbox together.
Yep.
Yeah. So done a little bit of everything, but I think weight training is definitely where my passion is when it comes to movement.
Yeah. And your own mindset has, like you said, kind of shifted from thrash yourself at the gym, starve yourself, or deficit, as much as you can, to having a bit more of a balance in all of it, not just nutrition, but also exercise.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people when they start out especially, or, a lot of people when they are just looking at getting into the gym, it's coming from a negative place, or a place of not liking yourself and wanting to change how you look and punishing yourself. Whereas now I have the mindset of I move, like that's how I fill my cup up, and how I move and how I nourish myself is, because I want to live a long, healthy life and have the energy to be the best mom I can. And like I said, it's how I fill my own cup up now. To show up for my kids.
Yeah. Ruby, when I was about, maybe 8 months postpartum or something, I reached out to her to try and help me with some tips and tricks or whatever to try and lose my baby weight. And, you kind of become a little bit obsessed in that. I guess a lot of mums can probably relate to wanting to get back to what you were and wanting to look a particular way when you've had a baby. And I think the absolute best thing that Ruby did for me was help me figure out a way to eat a really high amount of calories. Every time people ask me, they're like, what? When I said how much I was consuming, but a way to eat a high amount of calories and really nourish my body in order to, originally get back to the weight that I wanted to be or look a particular way that I wanted. And I wanted you to have a little chat to people about how can they not just be living in a deficit, and how can they lose weight if that is a goal they have, but have a healthy mindset and do that not in the stereotypical 1,200 calories a day bullshit. What do you think is the best way to do that?
So there's a time and a place for a deficit, and it needs to be controlled and it needs to be planned, and there needs to be clear goals. So you said to me, I'm here, I want to be here by this time. So we sat down and mapped out a plan and a time frame of how we were going to get there. And that was our time, that was our window. And remember, we had so many conversations of we're going to, at this date, get out of a deficit, because it's really important. And I think it's something a lot of women in particular struggle with, is they live their life in this constant cycle of dieting, and they're just in a deficit basically all the time. And the magic happens at maintenance. That's where you can sculpt your body, build muscle, have energy. Like, life is meant to be lived at maintenance. And a deficit is a very, it depends on how much you want to lose, but it is a smaller window of time where you kind of want to get in and get out, in my perspective. But the reason we were able to keep your calories reasonably high is because you were consistent. So we had strategies in place. You hit your targets. If you were going out, we had that flexibility. We planned ahead. We prepared, but you were consistent.
And if you're a very good student, guys.
You are. But if you'd fall off the wagon, you'd get straight back on. Whereas I think what a lot of people struggle with is they put themselves on these extreme deficits, or the generic 1,200 calories, and they cut out carbs, or they follow a diet with food rules, and that can't be sustained. So then what happens is, they might be perfect for 5 days and then fall off and binge. And then they say, oh, I'll start Monday because I've messed up. So that all or nothing mindset is you're aiming for perfection, which is impossible. And then as soon as you fall off a little bit, you give up and throw the towel in and say, oh, I'm going to have to start again because I've messed up.
Yeah.
And then you end up, you think you're in a deficit because you're struggling and you're punishing yourself, and then you binge. So really you're at maintenance.
Yeah.
So an approach that we took and that I like to take is having a sustained approach where you can, we're eating here, but you can maintain that. You can still go out. You have the energy. You were breastfeeding. So we had to approach it, for the first part of it.
A little bit differently.
We started at like 4 or 5 months.
No, it was like or end of August.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we really had to allow for that.
Yeah.
And then once we stopped breastfeeding, we adjusted things. But calories now were still able to remain high because you were consistent and you showed up and you did the work and you didn't, want those immediate fast results that then just cause you to be stuck in this yo-yo cycle.
And I think with consistency, and I know how you probably hear consistency is key, like, you know, so often, but mate, the last 2 years have shown that so much because, my son is about to turn 2. And
time gone.
Realistically, like my husband and I have this conversation so often where we can have like a month, even 2 months, over a Christmas period, for example, where we're drinking more than usual or going out for dinner a lot more than usual and just not, tracking things how we normally would, not moving our body as often as we would. And then we get to the other side of that and I have a look and I'm like, what, I actually didn't do that much damage because I've been consistent. So it doesn't look like, this is a 4-week diet, then I'm done. It doesn't look like this is a diet. To me, it's been more of this mindset shift of this is just a lifestyle I want to live where when I have it within my reach to do so, I try and eat as much whole foods as possible. I try and eat as much protein as possible. I try and move my body as much as possible. I don't really drink alcohol. But then when I want to, I do.
Yeah.
It's and then it kind of all balances out. People that look at calories, for example, on like a 24-hour cycle, it's almost useless.
Yeah.
Looking at it even just if you can on a weekly cycle so that you can not have this mindset of this is what it's going to look like. It has to look like this. You can still enjoy. You want to kind of average out. So if you're averaging out and you are consistent overall, that's when you can maintain a happy, healthy figure and mindset for a really long time. And you don't have to keep ebbing and flowing out of these crash diets.
Yeah. And I think definitely, the industry is changing in that way where now strong, healthy, fit bodies are being celebrated. Back when I was reading all those magazines, it was about who could, the person who did the best was the one who had the most self-control and could restrict and punish themselves the most. And we were kind of in this mindset of you have to suffer in order to see progress, which is really not the case. And like you said, it's more about, we would look at it over a week because we would check in every week. So we would look at your calorie average over the course of the week. And we had things in place to help, so you could go out and you could have a date night with your husband or you could have an ice cream with your kids. It's really, really important to be able to live your life.
Yeah. But on that as well, I don't want it to sound like to people, that's how either of us live every week. This is when I want a deficit.
Yeah.
When I'm on a deficit, which we have a set window, like Ruby has said, we're very much, tracking those things. But we do go through big chunks of time where it's just intuitive. So it's not like, I really want that ice cream, so I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, because that's, also a trap that we can easily fall into, that you stay in that all the time. So for me, the goal is to try and get to a place where you can maintain your results, but also feeling good without it being a constantly monitored thing.
You want it to be easy, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, this shouldn't be your whole life and your whole focus. It's just something that should work with your lifestyle and complement it. And that's why as well, it's so important to do what works for you and not to copy what someone else is doing. Or you see some influencer on Instagram that says, you have to fast until this time and do it this way. Like, you have to do
what works for
you.
you.
You have to eat foods you enjoy. You have to move in a way that
Yeah.
makes you feel good and that works with your lifestyle. And like you said, a deficit is a set amount of window, a set window. And this is what happens when people live their life in a deficit, is that they're constantly saying no and restricting and they can never get to that place where they can live their life and maintain it and feel amazing. Because in a deficit, you're not going to have
all the energy
that you have at maintenance. So
absolutely.
I think that's the one message, the main message that we probably would want people to take away today, is that it's okay to want to lose weight. It's okay to want to change your body, but there's strategies we can put in place to get
do it
there
in a healthy way.
And then to
and
be
get
able
out.
to get out, get in, get out.
And then maintain.
Yeah.
And
stop the, lose 5, put on 10. Because that's a trap. There's been so many studies that have shown that, 90% of women have lost a significant amount of weight, and then there's like a 5% chance of maintaining it because it's done with these fad diets and food rules. And
which is a stat I remember Ruby saying to me, and
I wish I had the exact numbers.
But around like that 1 year mark and then 1.5 year mark, when I was still maintaining it, I was like, yeah, like she made me do it in a healthy way because it's being maintained. It's not going all the way back on. But I think as well, eating and moving your body in a way that is right for you is so important. I talk about it when I talk about mental health, for example, finding the strategies that feel best for you. It might be deep belly breathing for one person. It might be cold shower for one person. Exercise is the same. And before I had a baby, I was doing like 2 kickboxing sessions a day. I was training like 6-7 times a week. I was
fasting till 2
fasting till 2. I was thrashing myself. And the most funny part is I was probably like 7 or 8 kilos heavier than I am post-baby. And not that the weight is the point. It's that I didn't even realize that my body was being put under so much stress that it was basically in like fight or flight and holding on to things it didn't need to hold on to. So now I'm full of energy. I move with, Pilates and weights and some running now that we're psychos and sign up for a half marathon. And it's just such a different approach, like training 4 times a week. And if you miss it, you miss it.
Yeah, like, you get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what would the main tips be that you would give somebody who wants to start a health and fitness journey, whether it be for weight loss or for just wanting to look after themselves?
Can I do this in 2 parts?
Totally.
So I'm going to just give 3 things I would, before we even start, how I would want to approach it from more of like a mindset point of view. So number 1, what we just chatted about, sustainability. So not copying what someone down the road is doing, making sure that it's something that you can sustain. Like we said, a deficit's not meant to be sustained, but the food that you're eating in a deficit is what you want to be eating at maintenance. You'll just be eating more of it. So you're eating food that you enjoy, you're moving in a way that you enjoy so you can sustain it. Number 2 would be consistency, like we spoke about. So get rid of the all or nothing mindset. Stop striving for perfection. Just try to be, if you can be 80% consistent, you will achieve amazing results. And just try and get out of that binge restrict cycle, which is, it's hard. It's hard. But if you do that first point, sustainability, it's easier. Number 3 would be have a clear goal, have a clear outcome. Because if you're just getting in there saying, oh, I want to lose weight, and you don't, like something we spoke about is we need to look at how far we've come and see that we have achieved our goal, because otherwise you're just going to keep going and going and going.
Yes.
So have a clear goal that can be measured so you can celebrate your progress and change the goal if needed. So even if it's just to be healthier, what does that look like?
Yeah, make it more concrete. Yeah, like any goal. Don't just have this big broad statement. Yeah, make it more concrete so you can be like tick. Yeah. So that would be number 1. Then to actually get into what I would do. So no matter what the goal is, if it's weight loss, if it's maintenance, if it's healthy, I do think tracking is a really, really useful tool just to kind of teach you how to fuel your body. And again, it's not something we need to do forever, but it's a great educational tool if you have an okay relationship with food and you're open to learning and educating yourself.
So number one, I would say find an appropriate calorie target. So I can actually send you a link that you could put even in the show notes to a website that you can use. If you can hire a coach, great. But if not, you can do it yourself. So I would find out your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. So you can put your stats into this website. It's not going to be perfect, but it is a great starting point, and it'll spit out the calories that you need to maintain. If your goal is fat loss, you would just create a 20% deficit
on that number.
So 20% of that number, take it away, and that would put you in a slight deficit. If your goal is maintenance, general health, performance, fertility, pregnancy, I want you to start with that maintenance number. So that's your calories that you're going to eat. And then second would be finding your protein target, because this is something that is so, so important. Protein is so important, especially for women as we're aging as well and through menopause. Really, really important. And protein is what's going to help you build muscle. It's what's going to help you repair muscle. And if you put on muscle, you're going to be leaner. You're going to create that sculpted tone look. You're going to transform your body.
You are not going to look like a bodybuilder. It takes so much work.
And if you're in a deficit without adequate protein, you're going to lose muscle. If you lose muscle, you're just going to
You're not actually losing fat.
Look. Yeah, you're not losing fat. So making sure we're eating adequate protein. So for most people, 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight is a good place to be. If you're in a deficit, you want to go on the higher end. So let's say, for example, you want to lose a little bit of fat. You figured out that what your deficit calories are to start with. You're 60 kilos. So we might times that by 2. So you want to hit 120 grams of protein. So that's all I want you to start with nutrition-wise. So you've got your calories and your protein. Don't worry about tracking carbs and fats. That's something you can do later down the track. But calories and protein is going to be the main thing.
Never tracked
and
carbs
it makes
or fats.
It easier. If you otherwise you end up playing macro Tetris. Unless you're like a performance athlete, it's different. So I want you to track your food, plan ahead to hit those numbers. 80% whole foods, always, because that is just for general health.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, we have moved away from that, but the trends used to be like that whole, if it fits your macros, you can eat whatever you want.
Yeah.
If it hits your numbers, yes, you'll see results, but your body's not going to function.
And your mind,
your body, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to have energy. So that's what I would start with. And then track your progress. We take photos. Don't just go off the scale, because it doesn't always give us a full picture. It's a great tool, but it shouldn't be the be all end all. So photos, measurements, and scale weight combination. And then start doing that. Be consistent, plan ahead. Planning ahead is really, really important, because it takes out that decision fatigue.
Yeah.
Like especially if you're not used to tracking, it can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I would just start with those basics. Don't look at what everyone else is doing. Don't look at what all the influencers are telling you, because if you follow all that advice out there, you'll have a list.
It'll be overwhelming as.
So I would start with that and put a big emphasis on whole foods. Then the other thing I would do in terms of training is I would incorporate some type of resistance work, a minimum of like 2 to 3 times a week, ideally 3 times a week. Follow a program, find a program. There's plenty out there. Find a program and then implement progressive overload. So what that means is every week that you're making that session a little bit harder by adding weight. If you don't want to add weight, or if it feels heavy, add some reps, increase your range of motion, slow it down. Make sure that you're constantly putting extra stimulus on your body, because if we just go into the gym with no idea, do whatever, change our session every time, our body is not going to be able to adapt and grow and progress and get stronger. So that by itself, that would be the main things I would focus on. And if you do that, you'll see some incredible results.
And 3 training sessions a week for some people might sound like, well, that's nothing if I'm trying to get a lot, trying to achieve all this stuff. But you will be so surprised that if you stick to that and you do progressively, get heavier or more reps and do all these small changes, it'll make the world of difference. And I know I will have some listeners that would say training 3 times a week, that's a fuck ton, how am I going to do that? So then
even if it's just for
even
half
if it's
an hour.
just, but if you can't, start with what you can, but
go for a walk.
like Ruby said, nutrition is the number one thing that everybody can do for free. So I think it's really important to, when you hear these kinds of podcasts, it can feel really overwhelming sometimes, I think, to go, wow, there's so much that I can do. But like you can hear, Ruby's broken it down to basically like 2 main things when it comes to nutrition and 1 to 2 main things when it comes to your exercise. And if you can just start by trying to do those, in gradually increasing them in. So you might just focus on calories, and then you might bring in focusing on protein. You might focus on doing, 1 strength session a week, and then you might up it to 2. You can just get there in your own time. But as you can hear, there's so much fluff and bullshit out there of what you can do. But if you can focus on those 4 things, I promise you it'll make the world of difference to not only how you physically look, but the best part of this whole journey for me has been my mental health. My anxiety is completely different to how it used to be. And
your to-do list isn't this long as well.
Absolutely.
Of doing all these little things that are just sending your body into overdrive. But I do also, on that, I am definitely not going to sit here and say everybody should track their calories, because even if your goal is to just maintain where you're at and you have a healthy relationship with food, we could just start by making sure we're eating 80% whole foods, having a little bit of protein in each meal. We definitely all don't need to go track our calories, but if you have a big goal or a really clear goal, or you want to achieve it in a set amount of time, that's going to get you there the quickest, because what can be measured can be managed. So knowing exactly, where we're at, but it's not for everybody. And definitely, some people don't need a track, or even if it all feels really, really overwhelming, I would just start by eating whole foods
and including resistance training.
And try and just focus on getting protein in where you can.
There's so many layers, people can start with, and it really depends on what you want to do with this information. If you want to be a professional athlete, or if you just want to be someone who, it also depends on your starting point. If you've never done anything with health and fitness, layer it. It's like going to a Pilates class and they layer in the hardest shit.
Go for a walk and
try and eat protein with every meal.
That's a great starting point. If you just new to it, or it's all really overwhelming, just start small, build a habit, and then that's another thing. Like, do not completely overhaul everything at once. And that's also what we did with you, how we were able to keep calories so high. We didn't use every tool in our toolbox.
No.
We didn't put you on 1,200, 1,500 calories. We started you high and your body responded. So why would we drop it?
Totally. And try that first. Right? That's the biggest thing. People think they've just got to go straight down here.
Because our bodies are smart. And if you start here, then we'll adapt. And then you're just going to have to keep going
every time. You'll have to start lower.
And you've got all this room to move.
And I think just on the mental health front, if anybody feels triggered or overwhelmed by their relationship with food or with tracking calories, please do not engage in any of these tips. And I would highly recommend reaching out to a therapist and talking about that, so that you can feel like you have a healthy relationship with food and with exercise. Just want to preface that, because this episode is very much for people who want to have a good relationship with health and exercise, and also maybe want to achieve physical differences as well, because like Ruby said, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. But I just want to kind of put that little disclaimer in there, because it isn't for everybody. Is there any difference you feel for women in particular in recommendations you'd have for a health and fitness journey, or is it like much for muchness?
No, it's definitely very different, and women are very different to men. We have, a lot of, we have things we need to account for: pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, and all of these stages. Periods. It's going to look not only just different to men, but different woman to woman. So it's really important that is taken into account. But if there's one tip I could give to all women out there, it would be lift some weights, eat some protein and don't live your life in a calorie deficit, because something that is really important to know is women, especially menopause and beyond, but even if you're 20 and listening to this, this is important, so don't tune out because what you do now matters. Yeah. So from menopause and beyond, we are prone to muscle loss. It happens to a lot of women, and then that is going to affect your quality of life. And the only way or one of the easiest ways to prevent that is by lifting weights and eating adequate protein. So I would start now and make sure that we're doing that, because that's going to reduce risk of osteoporosis, fractures, falls. It's going to improve your quality of life and help you live a longer, healthier life, help you be able to play with your grandkids when you're older. So something that's really, really important. The more muscle that we have too, the higher our metabolism is going to be. So that's something else with allowing you to, maintain at a higher calorie amount and have more flexibility. If you do have, and I'm not talking like bodybuilder, huge, big, or like, the figure competitors. I'm just talking about just general muscle tone. And that's going to, allow you to keep doing everything you want to do in life. There's no reason you have to stop. And that's something that's really, really important. And get out of a calorie deficit. Don't live your life there. Get to a healthy place where you can maintain and build a healthy foundation that can last you your entire life.
And I think when you mentioned, hey, if you're in your early 20s or, 30s right now, don't tune out. It's that and that knowledge around what we do now matters has been one of the biggest driving forces behind my change in mindset with health and fitness, in knowing how much resistance training, for example, in your 20s, that early, and what you fuel your body with can make a difference to the diseases that you fight off in your later life. So, diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's and dementia, knowing that I am doing what I can, because I understand there are some things that are out of our control, but if I can do what I can that is in my control to fight off those things and not just live, not just be alive, but really like truly thrive and live my life. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be able to get to every stage and be able to truly live and not just exist. And I love that I can run around with my kids now. Yep. I can run around with my grandkids down the track. Yep. Not just that, I can, go on holidays with my husband when we're older and actually like enjoy them and not be waddling around, or fight off disease, live as long as I can. I just think that is my biggest why. My kids are one of the biggest driving forces, but it's also, I don't just live for my kids, we live because eventually they're going to leave us. And I want to be able to have fun and love my life. And if I have a fall when I'm older, not be able to be fucking out with a broken hip. And I know it sounds like, why are you talking about this when you're 33? But the evidence is overwhelming that it begins in your 20s. So
the choices we make now affect us later. And if you're 40 and haven't started, that is fine. It's start now. And when we say resistance training too, I don't mean if you don't like the gym, you don't need to go to the gym. You can have some weights at home. You can go to Pilates, like any type of load going through the muscles. Like even, women that get out there doing manual labor and gardening, like that is beneficial. And you see that. We see that women that do that and don't go to the gym, or before the gym was even a thing. That they live a longer, healthier life. And also what you said there that was, really powerful as well, as having a why. That's really important too, because at the end of the day, like, it definitely shouldn't just be about how we look and our aesthetics. Like having a why does help you show up and stay consistent. Like I know mine is being able to be, the best I can for my kids and set an example and just be there for a long time. My mum, she won't mind me sharing, but hers is, we have a history of osteoporosis in our family. So she has the knowledge and she has the education and she has the tools to do what she can to give herself the best chance of living a long, healthy life and not having our quality of life reduced. So there's so much more to it than about how we just look and being as small as we can.
Yep. And I think, you know, Ruby will be able to comment on the amount of times I've said to her over the years, I just want to be as small as I can. You know, it is hard as a woman,
hard.
especially to break that mentality, especially with what is like broadcasted around us. It is really, really tough. But I often have to like sit back and remind myself of some of those bigger and deeper whys. For me personally, I think mental health is greatly impacted by what I consume and how I move my body. And I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, yeah, whatever. But you'd probably be really surprised how much of an impact it would make to you. I think the amount of evidence that is out there with studies upon studies of people with mild and moderate, not necessarily severe, but moderate depression, engaging in a 8-week program of moving their body and eating whole foods and eating well, having a dramatic reduction in anxiety and depression more than medication. And to me, that is like, you know, so I feel like mental health and having, you know, your daily like baseline being here rather than spending it trying to get up Mount Everest every day, because when I eat a lot of refined sugar, for example, and don't exercise, my worry train just fucking spirals. I really encourage, and I guess the next thing I was going to talk to you about is I get a lot of questions these days on TikTok and YouTube on how I stay motivated. And I think looking at maybe your why is different to mine, but trying to find a deeper why so that you're not just driven by, I want to look a particular way, because that's not deep enough for our body and our brain to want to persevere through wanting that wine or wanting that chocolate or wanting to go for the walk.
In and out.
Totally.
And having a why, like we spoke about, that's really, really important. Like a big why, big goal. Like my clients that have come to me, and you know, most people come to me and say, I want to lose 10 kilos. Why? I want to feel better. Why? I want to look better. Why? Like you have to keep pushing. So it's not just going to come to you. You're really going to have to think about it and delve into it. And then we get there, I want to be able to get off the floor by myself.
Yeah.
Or I want to be able to get up and down, play with my grandkids. And those people that have those goals, you bet they achieve them. So having a why, and also knowing that motivation is not going to always be there. It's rarely going to be there. Initially, when starting out, this is something one of my mentors taught me, and it's something that has really stuck with me. When starting out, obviously motivation levels are really high, and that's when we see people overhaul everything and change everything. I'm going to do this. And, you know, we're riding this wave of motivation. Great, ride it, but just know it's going to drop off. But hopefully you've built some momentum by doing that. That's proven to yourself you can do it. Oh, this is working. I'm feeling really good. You've got those habits in place, and then it's going to come down to being disciplined. And sometimes you are going to have to get out and move when you don't want to, and you're never going to regret it. And it might not look the same every day. If you say, I am meant to be doing in my program an intense session, I don't have it in me today, go for a walk. Do a Pilates session. Just it doesn't have to be this strict regime and schedule, but we are going to have to rely on discipline sometimes, and just building that base of habits. And I bet like most of the, you know, influencers you see out there, half the time they don't want to go to the gym. You know, it's normal human behavior, but it's about having those habits and those foundations where it's just what you do. And you do it for yourself, not for anyone else.
And I guess with habits as well, with any type of habit, put in as many support pillars as you can to make those habits easier to achieve. So, you know, real simple shit that I'm sure you've all heard. Don't have the chocolate in the pantry, so that if you do want to go and have it, you have to actively, well, these days you can get an Uber, but you know, you're going to have to pay for that.
Still a step.
Yeah, it's a step. Adding as many steps as you can to not be able to do the thing you don't want to do, and take away as many steps as you can for being able to do the habit that you do want to do. So, you know, putting your gym gear at the end of your bed so that there is no step in having to find it when you wake up in the morning. You just get up and go. You know, I think really
ahead,
plan
like what we spoke
ahead.
about, plan
Yeah.
ahead so that you don't have that decision fatigue at the end of the day and it all feels
Yep.
overwhelming and stressful. Try and do the hard things now to make it easier
Later.
So yeah, it might take time to shop and plan your week and have healthy food there, but it's going to make your week a hell of a lot easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's, I guess, nutrition, real food. What would you recommend supplement-wise, if any, that people take if they want to go on this health and fitness journey and go that one step up?
Yeah. So supplements are, exactly what you said. They're a supplement. They're there to supplement a healthy diet. And once you've got those foundations there, so first thing is I would focus on that. And then also with supplements, there is so much stuff out there too that can be sold to you as a magic pill and a quick fix or metabolism burner, fat burner. Like it's...
Oh, we're not going to talk about any of those.
No.
They are useless.
Yeah. So don't waste your money. Supplements, I would recommend, again, like you said, if you're there ready to kind of do one step further, is a good quality fish oil. And the reason for that is because a lot of us probably don't get enough omega-3s in our diet, and omega-3s are essential for just our health.
General health, brain health, mental health. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hair, skin, nails, reducing inflammation, reducing reducing blood pressure, reducing risk of cardiovascular disease. So just for general health. So a good quality fish oil is something I would recommend if you aren't getting, it in your diet through other sources. I do always recommend to my clients to have like an oily fish, like salmon, twice a week. So again, if you're vegan or you can't do that, vegans wouldn't even eat fish
Maybe
oil.
not.
That would be equivalent. But that's something I would really recommend. A good quality protein powder is also something I would recommend for my clients that really struggle to get their protein in, because it is just convenient for a lot of people. Again, protein from food is going to be your number one priority. But if you are really struggling to get that extra little bit in.
And a protein shake, she does not mean as a
meal replacement. No,
it's just
absolutely not.
Extra with the meal you're eating if you feel like you can't reach those protein
or you
targets.
can incorporate it into a smoothie. It's just it's easy for some of my clients to kind of have that there ready, but again, 100% not necessary. Even like the YoPro Performs or those high protein yogurts will give you a similar hit. So definitely not necessary, but it is just easy and convenient for a lot of people to supplement a diet. Third one is creatine. So creatine is one of the most affordable supplements. You don't need, there is like certain expensive ones. There's no different, just getting your basic creatine monohydrate. So there has been a lot of evidence that backs that supplement.
Isn't it like the most studied supplement?
Yeah. So it improves your performance. It can help with muscle growth, strength in the gym, brain health. So it is definitely one you can add in if you do want to, like, not necessary. It is in food as well. But it is another really good one. But that is it. Yeah. There's multivitamins and greens powders and all of that as well. But again, if we're focusing on 80% whole foods, focusing on our micronutrients, our fruit, veggies, basically whole foods as well. Just think minimizing processed packaged foods.
Yes. The more actual real food.
Real food. Yeah. Because I do believe food is medicine in a lot of ways too. And, it's so easy to look for those quick fixes or, take the pills but if we want to focus on that first. And obviously there is going to be times where people will need medication and all this other stuff. I'm not saying that, but we want to focus on this first.
Yeah. Okay. So that is, I guess, the now, and us talking about, what people can do in their current life and moving forward, and a bit about you. And I really would love to kind of jump on the bandwagon of the trend that's going around at the moment of meeting your younger self. So, the past. And I want this to be
this trend.
I want this to be actually a question that I ask every one of my guests that come on, because I feel like, after you've just spoken to somebody and heard everything about their current life and, how they can help your life, I think it can be quite powerful to hear what they would say to their younger self, because I guess most people don't spend time reflecting on that. But B, I think when you can relate to somebody and hear those heartwarming or nurturing words that they might be saying to themselves, I think for some of us it can hit home for us, and it can feel like we're nurturing a part of us as well. So you will be my first guest that I ask this to. But if you met your younger self, and it doesn't have to be in relation to nutrition and food if you don't want it to be, but what would you say to her?
I would give her a big hug.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, for me, it does start with my relationship with food and exercise, because that was, I guess, my relationship with a lot of other areas of my life. But I would tell her to nourish, not punish. I would tell her to do things to love herself, not because she hates herself or to try and make everyone else happy or try and please everyone else. I would tell her to do things because she loves herself. And yeah. I feel like I'm getting.
I don't know. I love it.
Oh, but I just sometimes I wish I could go back and just like shake her and be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, yeah.
But it
make these decisions because you want to hug yourself.
I am today, and it's definitely I don't have it all together, and it's ever evolving, and changing.
Yeah.
But you know, I would tell her that there is light at the end of the tunnel. That you'll do all the things. You know, your life would be better than you could ever imagine. Like, I told myself
and different
7 years ago where I'd be today.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe you.
Yeah. We have this conversation with each other every couple of months. We're like, because we have very similar lives.
We when we knew each other,
we met when we were so young.
And now we're in a very similar.
And we're like, imagine if we'd said to each other when we were like 20, this is what life's going to look like. We'd be like, what? But it's, you know, better than we thought it could. I think
to just show up and just keep doing the things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Follow your passion.
Yeah.
Do things for you, not for other people.
Yeah. I love that. That's really beautiful. I think the last thing I want to touch on is just what you brought up around, you know, I'm not perfect. I, by any means, you know, still working on these things. One thing I really want to consistently do with this podcast is be really honest and open about, you know, my own experiences in these things as well. When I'm preaching to you guys about how to look after your mental health or how to look after your, you know, your deeper why with nutrition and all that kind of stuff, I don't want you sitting here and thinking that I have it fucking all together at all. And I want to say that because I don't want when you guys might have these moments that you're like, oh shit, I'm not doing it right or I'm failing. It's really normal. And the reason why I say it is because healing is a lifelong journey. Healing is not, oh, I fixed my relationship with food, everything's fine. Or I fixed my childhood trauma, everything's fine. Like, it's a lifelong journey. And my biggest want for any person in my life or anyone listening is for them to embrace every stage of that healing journey and know that it will ebb and flow. And, you know, today's episode is about food and movement. And in the last 2 years, you know, changing my why, blah, blah, blah. But there are fucking plenty of times that I message Ruby being like, but I put on a kilo, or no, or like, you know, all that kind of bullshit. And I say bullshit, not because it's not the norm, but because fuck you, brain. Like, you know, I just want you to know that it's a constant effort to try and learn to love yourself and to try and heal from the crap that we saw when we were growing up or still see. And so I just want that to be something that's really, really clear. Healing is a lifelong journey on any facet that you are trying to heal, and just be okay with that. It will dip in and out, and you just have to do your best, and your best looks different an hour ago. It looks different tomorrow. Your best is your best in that very fucking moment.
Yeah.
So just do your best in that moment. And
that's such a good point with the health and fitness stuff. Like, it is not going to be linear. So do not expect that it's the scale's just going to do this. And that's something, like Michaela said, is we worked on a lot.
Yeah. She's probably had to deal with like 2 weeks
You've had to work on it with me a lot with the mindset stuff.
Yeah.
So having someone to support you is amazing.
Super important. I feel like as this podcast progresses, whatever the episode is about, it will somehow come back to your mental health and it will somehow come back to that it's a journey and that it's not something that is linear and that healing is lifelong. And if you choose to come on this path, you know, with me in this podcast or any kind of healing journey in life, I hope that you at least approach it with enough love to be accepting of times where you slip in and out of it, and be able to give yourself that big hug that was missing at some point. Otherwise, you wouldn't be needing this fucking healing journey. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I really hope that you guys can take a bunch out of the amazing information that Ruby has shared. If you do have any questions, I will pop the show notes down below. I'll have the link to the website that Ruby said, but I'll also, I mean, if it's okay with you, pop a link to actually Vision in Mona in case people want to work with a health coach like Ruby.
I'm hoping to move back into the online space in the near future too. And I've made a pact to myself to put myself out there more on social media. Yeah. So I'll leave my Instagram. Yeah. It'll make me
perfect.
Put myself out there, get out of my comfort zone and start kind of posting more health, fitness, mum, life.
Perfect
stuff.
Love it. So go and check her out, guys. Not only is she a wealth of knowledge, but she's a fucking angel of a human. And oh my God. And I love her so much. So she will bring light into your life if you just go and check her out. But hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.